What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you for tuning in. We got my man Drew Deckman here. He is the chef owner of Deckman's and El Mogor in Valle de Guadalupe, Baja, Mexico. I am excited to talk to you, my friend. I appreciate you hopping on a quick Facebook Live with me, man.
Good morning. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what's happening in Mexico as, it's a different country and a lot of things are different down there. Yet I'm excited because having talked to you a couple times now, the sense that we have within the hospitality industry of how we're taking care of each other, how we're going to navigate this, what happens next coming out of it is very similar. So I like that we're going to have different perspectives and things happening at the same time, like across the globe. Hospitality industry professionals, we're the same amount of crazy and connected, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just really a line drawn in the desert. There's not much that separates. The fish don't know that they're in two different countries, so we're
Right.
sharing a watershed, and so really when all this started to happen down here, our government was pretty slow to react. We saw pretty plainly in our reservations that we were going to have to make a decision really fast. We operate on probably 80% reservations in our restaurant, and we had
Because it's so heavy tourism down there.
It's a lot of tourism.
Yeah.
Probably, I'm guessing 75% of what we do is tourism, and either from the United States or from other places in Mexico, Guadalajara, Monterrey, Mexico City. Guadalupe Valley has really become an important tourist destination for food and wine tourism. So we started to notice, an extreme drop off in people, and so we started to talk to, I started to call colleagues. Hey, what are you doing? What's your thought? One of the first businesses to close was La Gomita, which is a good friend of mine. And he's like, no, dude, we're just going to shut it down. This just doesn't make any sense. And then, basically I left with the idea, hey, look, we're going to do this as long as we can, right? And the reality Mexico doesn't have COVID-19, which is absolutely not the case. We don't have the ability to test for it. So
you have no idea how many actually do.
No idea. So people are getting sent home with the flu, right? And the case numbers are just silly. They're just nobody has any idea really what's going on. And the government reacted pretty late. So what my initial thought, we're gonna hang on as long as we can. And then, the more I read and the more I realized our situation, I just had this sort of overwhelming sense of social responsibility. Like, we gotta close. We gotta close, and we gotta, help other people to find a way to close and make it through this together. And so a lot of the restaurants here in the valley, we talked to each other and we all chose a day, and we all closed at the same time. So some of the restaurants have stayed open, and now it was 2 days ago. I think we talked the last time we talked that Open Table has gone in and canceled every reservation in the system until like sometime in May. Basically saying you're not allowed to be open. So now the government has finally, at least the city government has mandated that all restaurants, are limited to takeout. Closing all bars, movie theaters, those kind of things, which is really similar to some of the things that are happening in the United States. They haven't gotten to the point where, shelter in place. There's part of our culture here is the no pasa nada. Nothing's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And so you go around and the taco shops are still full and the people are still eating with their hands over these bowls of salsa and
Mm.
everybody's touching the same spoons and then they move on and it's just like, okay, nobody's making any changes. And it concerns me because, you know, what does it do less now so you can do more later,
Yeah,
is the thing,
right.
and that's not happening. So it's gonna extend probably our closure. I mean, we're not, you know, when it does come back, I mean, the world's gonna be different, Jensen, and
Absolutely.
it's not gonna be the same. And I don't believe the tourism's gonna snap back overnight. I just don't. I it's tough for me to believe that. So we're going through the K. We're designing a reopening strategy that is not 100%. So we're not gonna go, okay, fire all your guns, let's go.
Yeah.
It's gonna be okay. We open micro, 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 and kind of getting back to what it used to be.
Yeah, you're only going to be able to take care of your small little community there because, to your point, first of all, people aren't going to have money to go travel. And second, they're just going to be nervous and not feel safe and secure no matter what. And it's going to take a lot of time to rebuild that. And
Yeah.
so, micro, that was macro. And I appreciate that. And I love the leadership that just the restaurant community seems to always show that you all were willing to
It's
sacrifice your
unbelievable.
business.
What's
Yeah.
happening everywhere is unbelievable. I mean, just there's more activism and reaching out to politicians and cooking for people and coming together, and it's really really beautiful.
Yeah, that's it. And you're a small business owner. 90%, over 90% of restaurants are small businesses. And the fact that you guys are taking that leadership to say we have to do something about this, even though it's going to hurt us because restaurants live paycheck to paycheck too. You're only a couple cycles away from being at zero in most restaurant operations with those margins. So I really appreciate that. And that's going to mean a lot to the community when the community does come back, is that level of leadership. And so let's talk about micro. Let's talk about your people. Between your 3 locations, you have around 50 staff members
Yep.
and had to furlough them. Let's talk about them and what they mean and what you are doing right now to kind of try and support them. I know that's important to you.
Sure. I mean, it basically means that 50 families live from our 3 little restaurants, and those 50 families are not in a position where they can, back to what you said, paycheck to paycheck. They're not in a position where, hey, we're not going to pay you for 60 days. Come back when we reopen. It just doesn't work that way. And a lot of them have children, and it's so we decided to, I'm going to provide food for my staff every day. Each person has, the right up to take up to food for 4 people. We're not, we've dropped down from 50. So when we did close the restaurant, a lot of people who are from other parts of Mexico, Puebla, Oaxaca, Mexico City, basically, hey, I'm not gonna be able to pay my rent. So they went back to where their families are. We're having a minor earthquake here. Did you see that? Everything's shaking.
Are you really?
The table.
I was talking to my mom yesterday, and she's like, "Did you feel that?" So I was like, "Yeah, we just had an earthquake. Sure did."
Wow. So we have them bring in their own Tupperware, so we're not creating trash. We're not kind of we're not gathering a lot of people. We ask them to wait. Basically, if you see somebody else is in there, let them leave, come and then come in. And we're just giving them food to go every day, 1 o'clock, and very very thankful of the people. So.
I absolutely love that. And so, about how many staff members are you then feeding daily?
We're doing around probably between 40 and 50 meals. So some will take for 4 people, some will take just for 1 if they're by themselves. There's some take 2. So we're probably feeding 25 staff members with varying, some is just 1. And it's not always the same people every day. And so a big part of the team lives in Ensenada, which is about 20 minutes away. But without a paycheck, it's not real. It doesn't even value the fuel to come get the food. So we've started a way to. Our administrator lives in Ensenada, so she brings their Tupperwares to the restaurant and then takes their Tupperwares back full. So we are able to get food to Ensenada too, which is kind of cool. I
really like that. And so you do have a couple sous chefs working there.
Yeah, so we retain really our core people. Chef Toshi, who's my partner in the Omakase project, he's got to be doing something all the time, so he's there every day. And then
he's a chef. Huh?
He's a chef, yeah.
Yeah.
And then 2 of my key guys are there, and my operations manager, she actually went to cooking school and then got into the service side, so she's getting back to getting her apron on, and so it's that's fun.
She's gotta love that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
Maybe maybe not. What does that mean for you personally, for them to be able to cook? Because cooking now has a completely different meaning to all of us, really, but a completely different meaning to them. Now you're not cooking for tourists, you're cooking for your family in a very meaningful way. So maybe talk about that dynamic in the kitchen. It's got to be a little bit sad and inspiring at the same time.
Well, and we've had a couple of different discussions, like philosophical discussions based on this, because, at the beginning, I started to see some real quality issues. I'm going, dude, rice is overcooked, or this doesn't, you didn't even flavor that. Or that's like, and, the answer was kind of like, oh, it's just staff. And I'm like, whoa, go home. I don't need you here. And so we switched out a couple of people. And it's like, if we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing it right. And, we haven't bought any food since we started this. We're going on 2 weeks now. Actually, today is 2 weeks, and we haven't bought anything. And we've just been using from our garden and from, whatever proteins were in the restaurant when we closed, and just got it in the freezer. Lots of rice and beans, which is one of my favorite things to eat. I made birria for today, so that's going to be really good.
Nice.
And we've got, something really neat, Jensen, is we've got, when we decided to close, I sent a message to all of our ranchers and fishermen and purveyors, and basically saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to be feeding my staff. So if you've got any food that maybe you can't sell, think about us. And so people have started to donate. I've got one producer that's donating a suckling pig each week. We've got some shrimp delivered, shellfish, and it's all things that aren't normally in like staff meal, right?
Yeah.
So, my fear is when all this clears away and we come back, people are gonna, I'm gonna get Yelp reviews on my family meal every day, because they're not enjoying it as much as they did during quarantine. So, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it, right?
Oh, I love it. I could just see the smile on your face. I know how important a couple things are to you. One, your garden, and the pride that clearly is on your face when you're talking about the fact you hadn't had to buy anything because you have invested time and effort and resources and space to having that level of garden. It's been a big part of what you're doing. And being on the ranch, it's nice. You're not in an urban setting, so that really helps. On purpose, you're not in an urban setting. And then also your purveyors, especially seafood. For anybody who doesn't know, look up the work that Drew has done with Slow Food International, Slow Food in Mexico, and especially being kind of at the forefront of sustainable seafood. And anytime you go down there, ask Drew to pop a couple oysters for you. It's magical to watch for sure. So I'm sure that's a lot of fun for you guys. And I like the philosophical conversation with your staff. Like, it's just family meal. It's the kind of thing that gets you gets a pan thrown at your head, because
Well,
that's
no, it gets you quarantined. It gets
it
you.
gets you.
You don't get to come cook with us. You get to go spend it in your house.
It's
And
important.
because if you're not, if you're not 100% on, then you're not. I don't want you there. I don't want your bad energy, and you should be really, really thankful that we can do this, that we have the ability to go cut our lettuces and pick our fava beans, and we still have, firewood, which is, good. And when that runs out, it's going to be, an issue.
You have the outdoor grill going?
Yeah, it's all we got,
Yeah.
right? So everything we do is wood fired.
The thing is beautiful, beautiful.
So, we're only lighting one fire a day instead of 9, which is what we normally have going
Right.
in the restaurant. So, but it's enough so I still smell the right way when I come home. You know, I started putting, the first couple of days when we weren't lighting the fire, I was like putting liquid smoke in my shampoo,
Yeah.
just to try to
Get some normalcy, and just I like it, man.
Yeah.
That's important. So you talked about the purveyors. I know also you just started over the weekend, a program where you're helping.
Friday was the first day.
Friday. So talk to us about what you're doing there. You are helping to feed families of the fishermen down in Ensenada. Or give us some details there, because I love that. Another way that you're supporting the community.
Ezekiel Hernandez, who's one of our sort of liaisons between fishermen here, he's a purveyor that works, really sends a lot of Baja seafoods to the interior of Mexico and other places in Mexico. For us being at the point of capture, I almost, like I said, he's a fish facilitator for us. Not necessarily. It's a liaison more than anything else with the fishermen.
He's a connector of people.
Connector of people. So he came to me and said, hey, I've got, when we shut down, basically, because this is trickle up and trickle down, right? I mean, people stop coming, restaurants stop, people stop buying the fish, and, you start looking at, so they had 850 kilos of striped bass that they had just gotten, that was supposed to be sent to all over Mexico, and got canceled. And so they filleted it and froze it. And so he contacts me. He goes, "Hey, look, I've got all this fish, and we can get some other things donated. I'd like to feed people in need within the fishing communities here in Sausal, which is sort of the town at the base of the mountain here from the valley, where a lot of the fisheries, at least on this side, are based." And then, of course, he went to some sort of government meeting, and then they wanted to get on board. And so now the like local, it's called a delegado, which is like the delegate
Delegation.
Yeah. So he came out to the restaurant on Friday, very, very thankful. And they also have more connections helping to, find a place for the food. My fear was that if we didn't have 100, we did 132 meals on Friday. So if we didn't have those, if we didn't have an outlet for that, we needed, I didn't want to do that much food, because they were talking about doing, 30 kilos of fish, at 100 grams a person, that's 300 meals. I'm like, all right, do we have a spot for 300 meals? I don't mind doing it, but do we have a spot for 300 meals? And so that's when he got the government involved. Gotcha. And we were able to distribute all 132 on Friday, within about half an hour of packing it, which was pretty cool.
Unbelievable. So the hospitality industry, once again, leadership in this moment, and then the government is following suit and finding a way to be the logistics for that. But the leadership, once again, is amazing.
Well, we're screwed. We're all screwed. It's not unless you're the company that's making the hand sanitizer, you're screwed, or toilet paper. But I just read an article about when this thing finishes, there's going to be like an 18-month like slump for the toilet paper companies because
Of
people have
course.
so much freaking toilet paper.
Yeah, I've had some funny stuff where it's like you'd have to take a shit 100 times a day for the next 3 years to go through your
Uh,
6 cases of Costco toilet paper.
yeah,
So yeah,
right. Uh, the uh, so when everybody's down, the only thing you could do is reach out, help, help your neighbor, or because otherwise you just kind of sit in your room and sulk. And but if you can, give something back, we a lot of times, we take from the world, and sometimes you gotta pay back into your karma account sometimes. And um, people have helped me in the past, and
good.
it's made a big difference. So we're trying to do that now for others.
It's amazing. It's amazing work. And so I want to talk a little bit about like what happens next. You're talking about how we're getting through this moment, how we're going to have to think micro, we're going to have to take care of a community. For you specifically, tourism is not coming back soon enough to sustain the business in the way that it was. What are some high level thoughts that you have? Because I'm very interested, as we need to think about our communities being much smaller in the way that we acquire food, in the way that we service hospitality, the way that we actually deliver our products. So reflect on that for a moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing we're under this blanket for at least 60 days. We're shooting for 1st of June, maybe.
Yeah.
Our government's saying 1st of May, everything needs to be open. It's like, you're an idiot, but
Yeah.
okay. Basically, I think we're 85 miles south of the U.S. border. So, what happens in Southern California is probably what's going to happen here, or at least that's the lead we're going to take, or the lead we're going to follow. Just using that as sort of a measuring stick.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have an outdoor restaurant made of all natural materials. We've always been good at sanitizing and hygiene. And the beauty of what we have is it's not an enclosed space. So, looking for, we have 3 walls and they're made out of hay, covered with mud. And, I mean, I'm cooking under the stars or sun or whatever. And um, so in that sense, it's not, we have an advantage that you're not putting a lot of people closed in together. I mean, even the bathrooms are outside. I mean, there's no enclosure. There's a roof and there's separations, but you're still technically outside when you're going to the bathroom. Um, and I think that'll help us when things get going again, and we'll definitely use that when we're re-announcing what we're going to be. I think people are going to be more concerned about their personal hygiene. I think they're going to be more
Yeah.
concerned about what they touch. One of the things we started to do almost 2 weeks before we closed is we stopped pre-setting tables. So when the guest arrived, we removed about half of our tables so people were not as close.
Mm-hmm.
And then stopped pre-setting tables and sanitizing the table as the guests got there in front of them. And so,
Smart.
right, because you don't have, washing, really sanitizing the silverware right in front of them and those kind of things. That may be something that we continue to do when we reopen. This isn't going to just go away. There's not going to be a day when it's just like, oh, okay, COVID-19's over, everybody come out. It's going to be a slow process. And if we force sort of the exit from our caves, it's just going to spike again. So, man, this is brave new world, man. I've never
Yeah.
been through anything. I've
The
never.
Nobody's ever been through this. The garden. I'm really, really fascinated in the garden. I think we have everything at our fingertips, which is amazing. The opportunity to share culture across the world. I appreciate that a lot. The fact that I can appreciate the culture of Taiwan or Mexico or Brazil is something that I appreciate. At the same time, it has stretched our logistics and procurement of products, and the fact that sometimes I can get produce from Chile cheaper than I can from down the street has changed the economics and the dynamic.
Cheaper than Napa and those kind of things. You're like, oh, something's not right here.
So something's going on there. So you have committed yourself to being really connected to the soil, to the sea where you are. We're going to see a lot more of that out of necessity. There's been some people doing it as a brand because they want to be farm to table, things like that. But now it's becoming more of a, you might not have any other choice because you may not be able to get some of those products anymore as we kind of shorten the lines of transpo and access a little bit. So reflect on that, because I think that is something that you're well positioned. Clearly, you haven't bought food in 2 weeks, man.
Yeah. So, we're in a privileged situation. Our restaurant's on a 2,500 acre ranch that we rent space from. So the ranch is there. We have, we were able to purchase a small piece of land that one of the first things we did was put a garden on it because, the garden originally was intended to feed us once we got our house finished. I mean, I want our house to be 100% off the grid. I want us to be, from chickens to sheep to bees. I mean, just as, self-sustaining as possible. And my gardener is this guy named Ricardo. He's from Oaxaca, and he is the greenest thumb I've ever met from anybody. He looks at the seeds and they sprout. It's amazing.
El Mágico. I like it.
And so he's tripled the size of the garden without even asking me. It started out like this size, and I'd come back and he'd move the fence, and I'm like, dude, it's like, well, I ran out of place to plant. I need more space. and now it's 3 times as big as the original plot, and it's just going wild. Right now we've got fava beans and peas, and the cabbage is ready, and Swiss chard, and all kinds of onions, and lettuces are just super happy, and every herb you can imagine, and it's that's just one of our 3 farms. So in another farm where I'm actually seated today is a place called Villa Matilda, which is a little bed and breakfast place. So this is where we grow most of our flowers. We don't buy flowers for the restaurant either, so we grow our flowers. And then this is more carrots and artichokes and bigger production. Single. It's not monoculture, but it's where we can do. Hey, we need beets for the new menu. Well, we've got 3 rows of beets, and it's going to be
right.
And then where the restaurant is in Mogor, Natalia Badan, who's the owner of the ranch, she's had her garden 25 years, and it's a farm. I mean, it's got to be 4 or 5 acres of just table food. And down here we really have 3 growing seasons. We really don't have 4 or 6 like some places. We have a rainy season and then a not rainy season, and so we really have the same season twice a year, which is like now and then in the fall, and then we have hot as fuck or cold as fuck.
Yeah.
Right. For me, for Mexico terms, I mean, we get a couple of frosts and whatever. It's not like you're cold as fuck.
Yeah,
that's
whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing.
Whole different thing.
And so we do have, we get in summer. It's great for squash and tomatoes and eggplant, and all the nightshades really thrive. And then in winter, it's cabbage, and we've got our rhubarb is going wild right now, and Brussels sprouts and kale and broccoli and cauliflower, and all those things do really, really well. So we're able to pull from those 3 spots, and really each one has a different soil quality. Each one has different amounts of water available, which is the most water of all of them where I am in Matilda, and that's why we do our flowers here, because they require a little more water than the other stuff. But So we found out that like in my soil in Rancho Salvia, potatoes do well, but they don't do well anywhere else. I don't know why. It's the first time this land has been cultivated ever. It has never been moved. So maybe potatoes like no nutrients. I don't know.
You're figuring it out. The punchline of this that I love is grow food or be directly connected with somebody who grows food. I think that's going to be very, very key for people to really, really think about that.
And it's not even with elevated beds, you can do it in an urban setting.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to own farmland. You can, with some pieces of wood and some dirt, you can make an elevated garden
Yeah.
and grow enough to maybe provide your own herbs or your own lettuces in your restaurant. And that any little bit helps, man.
Yeah, the creativity and innovation that's going to come out of this is the part that I'm most excited about. From a business model, from the way that we treat our people and build our teams and our family, to the way that we procure our products, all of those things are going to have to shift. We're going to have to be more thoughtful about them, because it's just been anything and everything at the drop of a hat. You can get whatever you want, and now that's going to be a little bit different. The expectation is going to be different, and the pressure on
I think
that's going to be different.
absolutely. And I mean, our goal has always been, get as close to being a 0 kilometer restaurant as possible. About half of what we serve is seafood, so it's coming from 20 miles away. But it's to get any closer to 0, I think we'd have to go underwater probably. But then
The fact that 20 miles away seems like a long distance to you is crazy and refreshing to hear, because that is like no distance whatsoever. Like a guy can drive up on his scooter and make it up to your farm with your seafood for the day. So I really appreciate that. Give us some playlist items. As you talked about, you're there with the family on the little bed and breakfast.
Yeah,
what are you listening to?
I'm a jazz guy, so I'm always into jazz in all kinds of different ways. Been listening to a lot of Todd Snyder and John Prine, and it's so Neil Young. I mean, it's the stuff every day. I just make my young staff suffer through old folk music, and so I have control of the speaker, and I guarantee you that they change it as soon as I get back in my car and leave. They're like, "Oh no, turn that off!" But yeah, so we're trying to change it up every day, and music makes the food taste different based on what you listen to.
Yes, it does create that emotion and that mood. And speaking of John Prine, I heard he's doing a lot better. So it's a good time to listen to some John Prine as he is healing, as we are getting through this, and we are all going to heal as well. Drew, man, I always love talking with you. Always inspiring, always hungry afterwards. And I always want oysters. Every time I talk to you, I'm just like, I'm telling you people, somewhere on the internet is a video of Drew Deckman shucking oysters. Go find a video of that, because it's a work of art in motion. And I appreciate the conversation and the leadership. We're going to need a lot more of it coming out of this. So thank you. And have a great day. Take care of that family, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for doing these shows. Thanks for having me on. And everybody out there in the restaurant industry will get through this. Just stay positive and help others as much as you can. Grow your own food.
That's what we're built to do. So this is our time to shine. Drew, I appreciate it. Take care.
Cheers, man.
The best. I mean, the best. He's one of the best in the industry. I love the mentality. I love the approach. I love how committed he is to being out there on the land, And I think sometimes it's easy to say, well, it's easy for you to grow your food. You're out on a ranch. Yet he made that decision, right? They put all their effort into being in a spot that's slightly off the beaten path, up the valley from Ensenada. It'd be much easier to be in Ensenada where all of the traffic is. That's a commitment. And those are the kind of just thoughtful commitments that we're going to have to make. And the fact he has not bought food in 2 weeks, it's unbelievable. that so much of what they are cooking daily for their staff, for the families, from the fishermen, are coming from their own property or from their community. And that's really what I'm seeing playing out, is more and more our small little communities are going to make all the difference in the world in this moment, and coming out of this moment, as tourism for them very specifically is going to be way, way down. But also right now, if you're doing curbside pickup, to go delivery, the people I see doing it really well either have that food product like pizza or Chinese food that is just embedded in the zeitgeist of what delivery food means in this moment, and they are the ones that are spending the most time, have spent the most time building those communities, and are engaged and active, and people actually give a shit about them. That's what you really, really need. So cultivate that and lean on the people that have been there, and reach out directly to them and be connected directly with them. That's what I take away from talking with Drew every time. Today is no surprise. So getting back on the air in about 25 minutes at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, beyond talking to Heather Lynn Spadell. She is a bookkeeper. She owns Satchel and Rose Bookkeeping in Loveland, Colorado. And we're going to attempt to kind of start to unpack and give a little bit of guidance, answer some questions about PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, EIDL, SBA, CARE Act, like all these acronyms. I have no idea what they meant. It's just like social distancing and this different vernacular, these vocabulary words that all of a sudden are just so normal to us. So we're going to try to unpack that a little bit. So very specific information for hospitality professionals, for those on the ownership side that are going to be applying for these. This is also a very important conversation for our most important audience to me. Those are our unsung hospitality heroes. Those are the people in the trenches, because this has the opportunity to potentially put a lot of people back to work, as the incentives around this are built around bringing people back onto payroll. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and we're going to talk about that throughout the week. So this week is going to be heavy on our second episodes of the day, which at 11 a.m. Mountain Time are going to be a lot of professionals who can help us try and navigate, as it is very murky out there, what it means to get this kind of support from these different bills and initiatives. So check in a little bit. Be safe out there. Eat something delicious today. Cheers.